Hello. So I thought today I would talk about something that's been on my mind, which is the difference between a spiritual retreat, or rather the perception of a spiritual or meditation retreat, and the actuality of it, the reality of it. And as a funny kind of, what do you call it, meme, the thing that comes around about Zumba all the time. And it's like there's a picture of some amazing, salsa dancer saying, this is how I feel doing Zumba. And next to it's like, this is how I look. And it's like, Ace Ventura or something in a little tutu or something. So I thought this would be quite real way to do it. Yeah, it's. I think it's like very often we go into things with the idea of what something's going to be like, and then what it really is like. And at the moment, we're seeing a huge demand in the UK for meditation classes, for mindfulness. And if I mention it, people say, "Oh yes, I need to do that." And it's a bit like fitness. There are a lot of levels and a lot of different approaches and a lot of different things that are appropriate for different people at different times. It's a lot like massage and therapies and spas and all that kind of thing. There's different levels and there's things that are more and less intense. And if we talk about, say, a retreat, so a lot of people go, oh, yes, yoga retreat. Oh, yes, my mindfulness meditation retreat. Oh, yes, spiritual retreat. Now, in all my sort of time of like traveling and this and that and the other, I think I've only actually been on two proper official retreats. And all the rest were things I sort of made up. Or I went to a spa for a couple of days, or I kind of went on a pilgrimage, or I'm actually quite good at making up my own escapes, making up my own retreats, and sort of, which is not to say that it's always easy. A lot of time which I spend doing things like that, I spend a lot of time sitting there going, why did I decide to do this? This is kind of crazy. So I think for a lot of people who are busy people, who are people who are relied upon, who have never had the time and have always thought, oh, yes, I'd like to do that. A lot of people thought that possibly social distancing, self-isolation would be like a retreat. And a lot of people have actually said, on social media and so forth, oh, I thought this would be a relaxing time. I thought I would be able to spend more time with my family. I thought this would be easy. I thought I would enjoy this. And it's been completely different to what they expected. To be honest, I've been extremely busy. I think a lot of people, I think I look as if I'm sitting around a lot of time, but I didn't do much yesterday because I had quite a lot of symptoms. I wasn't feeling great. And so I needed to take some time out. But, really I'm going as fast as I can, and probably a little bit too fast in places as well to try and, do everything that I think I can do at the moment. So, but as I say, a lot of people were thinking, oh, great, I want more time to read or write or, and I'm sorry, I pity the fool. I pity the fool, even though I'm going to be working with people tomorrow who are doing writing and publishing. I pity the fool who decides, oh, great, now I've got all this time to write. Because when you sit down to write, that's quite challenging. It can be. It can be easy, it can be. But whether it's a spiritual retreat, meditation retreat, when we sit down to do those things, a lot of stuff comes up, and I mean, some writing is great. Some writing is easy and it goes, it's like butter, like a knife through butter, great. But in my experience, a lot of writing is actually quite challenging. And if you're trying to finish something like a book, very often it's those bits that you haven't been able to complete are the bits that are the hardest. So coming back to the whole spiritual retreat thing, so the first proper one I went to was in Sedona, well, classic, isn't it? I go to Sedona in Arizona and do my retreat. And I really wanted to do that. And it was amazing. And I'd already zigzagged around. I'd been to Winslow, Arizona. I'd been to the Grand Canyon. I'd been to Antelope Canyon, which is mind-blowing. I'd been to Vegas. I'd already like squeezed a whole lot in when I went to this retreat. And for me, I came with problems. And on that retreat, what was great was I was having all these realizations, but they were they were great. They were positive. They were like, oh, wow, oh, wow, I thought this was challenging, but it's like, oh my gosh, it's so simple. I get it. But one of the things I remember about this retreat space, and it is a proper retreat space, it's like real proper, is that a lot of us were sharing with somebody. And it's funny because I normally never share, and I decided to share. And when you meet somebody and you start talking about things, I was absolutely meant to share with this person. This is the right person to, we're helping each other on this journey. And but so what they do is they have like a 24-hour sort of welcome center right in the middle, which has got like tea and coffee and lots of comfortable couches and things like that. And it's also one of the few places in the area that you can get a Wi-Fi signal and you can call people. So they say, look, if you're having a breakdown, please go to the 24-hour welcome centre. It's very homey. It's quite a safe place. Apart from the rattlesnakes and like that kind of thing, maybe it's scorpions. Probably scorpions in Arizona. Apart from all that, it's pretty safe because you're in a sort of quite remote area. So that it's set up so that if you suddenly have an emotional breakthrough and you suddenly need to go and ring somebody and have a tearful conversation with them about your it's set up for that. And it's kind of like they know that's what's going to happen for a lot of people. So for me, I was having a really jolly time, and I was waking up really super early and going out and looking at all the stars, because the stars are amazing in Sedona. And we weren't doing it at night because it was like raining and stuff. So it was only early in the morning that you could see them. You had to get up really early in the morning to see them. So I was getting up early in the morning, and then I was going into the welcome centre to use the loo and get a drink because I didn't want to wake up my roommate. And I would go in there and there was all these people and they'd be like, oh God, having a complete breakdown, having a complete meltdown. And I was like, oh, I must have had mine already. I'm all right, And going off and sitting and meditating under the stars and walking around and wandering to vortexes and doing all that kind of stuff. And it was, it's a really, really great time for me. And it unlocked a lot of things in a really positive way. But then I carried on and I went down to a spa after that. So because that retreat was only 2 nights, and this was a spa I really wanted to go to where I had the Native American healing. And this spa, I mean, everything, just amazing. And this healer was somebody, I mean, I'm talking about a proper healer, she was a tribal healer and be given special permission. And I've actually got a book about it and I'm doing the audiobook now. And in that space, in that safe space, things started to happen, things started to like come out. And when we did the actual healing, I was just pulled apart. And I always remember, like, I would go and I was sitting there, and again, like in the dressing gown, and there was the fire, and it was amazing. But I was sitting there, and I just, I felt like somebody had, it was like the Bionic Man, just somebody pulled me right apart. And I was sitting there like in a state of, I just don't know, I just don't know. Sorry, I don't know, who I am, or everything I've told myself isn't true. And I kind of, the mirror's broken, that I was looking at, and the reality has shifted completely. And I always remember when I was sitting there and I was like, crying, and there's all these tissues, and you're like, oh. It's like it's a kind of therapy, And I always remember the really lovely people in this bar would come up and they would go to me and they go, are you okay? How are you? Are you all right? And I was like, I'm destroyed. I'm destroyed. And one of the things that happens very often in a spiritual retreat is that all the lies that we've been telling ourselves and everything that we, have kind of existed on, our beliefs and what we've built our world around, can be destroyed and can fall apart. So we think that spiritual retreat is going to be like, oh yes, and a picture of somebody doing yoga on a rock in the middle of a thing, and it's going to be so cool and ding, and oh, I'm centered and I can meditate for 75 hours in a row and I can do this. And basically it's it's not. It's like a rehab center. And a really good book about this is Rachel's Holiday. I keep referencing that, by Marianne Keyes. So you go to a spiritual retreat and it's more like, that's what spiritual retreats end up being like. And Zumba convention could be like I had a Zumba convention that wasn't a retreat, but my last Zumba convention in 2015 was very much like that, And then, then I was going into sessions, and it was really funny because I was thinking, I remember that so clearly, and I was, falling apart again. Well, this was actually before, so I was falling apart, and you go into the welcome, the keynote, and it was okay, and I was like, just you don't have to keep it together too much, just a bit. And I went to South African Township and I did that, and it was like, oh, it was so lovely. And then I did connecting. I forget the name of it. It's a workshop, a convention workshop called Connecting. I forgot the name of it, but it's all about when we, somebody says, "How are you?" and we say, "I'm fine, I'm fine." And so we did these exercises in which we actually connected with a partner, and we were talking about things. And, this person I'd never met before, it's actually funny, actually. I was looking at a picture yesterday. I was looking for some photos, and this picture came up of us together. And, we reached out and we were actually talking about what we were going through in that moment. And the connection was so powerful, and it was so deep, and it was so beautiful. And I remember again doing that workshop in London at the Believe event in Zumba as well. And we did a workshop, and I had a different partner. And of course, I had done this before, so I was like, okay, I know that this can get a bit heavy. This can get a bit heavy. And again, the guy that I did that with, I'm still messaging him on Facebook, and we still say hi, and there's when we connect a little bit deeper. But luckily I wasn't in a falling apart place at that time. So and also I did an amazing retreat with the Ruiz family down in Mexico as well, for a few nights down there. And a lot happened down there, and for all of us, people were experiencing different things and changing who they thought they were, and learning so much about but they'd come there for a reason. They'd been drawn to it. And I think for a lot of people in this situation, this either it's self-isolation, social distancing, suddenly being unable to do the thing that they thought they were going to be doing, puts them in a position which they weren't planning for. They weren't prepared for it. And it's a shock. And it's a shock to the system. It's not like deciding that you're going to go to Mexico and planning it, or going to Sedona and planning it for like 6 months. It just, it's a bit much. So I'm just saying this, really one of the things is to kind of let go of the perception and this idea that the spiritual journey is easy or pretty or rainbows and unicorns. Because, it's not, even for Buddhist monks and nuns. And I've been very lucky to kind of go and hang out with a lot of Buddhist monks and nuns. And, they're all individual, beautiful human beings, and they're all different. And even they struggle. And, one of the... I'm trying to think if I can share this because it's kind of special. And, when you do these things, when you go on retreat and you work with people, there is a certain amount of confidentiality, whether you're teaching it or whether you're just a participant in it. I'll share a practice with you, though. So this is a practice from... And Plum Village is Thich Nhat Hanh's monastery... village. It's a village, a Buddhist village in the south of France, which I've been to, and it's been lovely. And they're doing an online retreat at the moment. I have shared this, but I wouldn't recommend it to anybody who's not kind of done some practice before, because it's quite heavy. It's quite, and it's one style of Buddhism. It's one way of approaching Buddhism. But when I was there, we did a very beautiful thing, and so I'll try and teach this right, try and explain it right, and it's something you can do. It's actually very special and very important. I think it's something that we're talking about at the moment and trying to... This is kind of the space between two ways of doing things, which might not work on their own, but if we can bring it into this space, it might work better. What do I mean? Okay. So what I mean, it's interesting because I was looking on the NHS website and they were talking about how to stay, how to stay safe and well at this time and deal with your mental health. So one of the things is talk to other people about your worries and your fears. Okay. And then another thing says, don't dwell on it. And don't what's the word? Don't wind yourself up. Don't wind other people up. Okay. So we can see that there's these two different things. Yeah. And what we did at Plum Village, which was very beautiful, and actually was doing this in a circle with monks and nuns, was we did a thing and we call it Dharma sharing. And I'm not even going to try and explain what Dharma means. It's a bit like karma, but it's not like karma. What I mean is, you could write books and books and books trying to explain different theories about what karma is and how karma works. I'm actually partial to the My Name is Earl style of karma, if you've ever seen that, where if you do good things happen to you. And I think in that he talks to some sort of, very high up teachers and they say, no, that's not how karma works. But it always seems to work for him. So we'll go with that. So do good things and good things happen to you. That's a good way of looking at it. But Dharma is something different, and I'm not going to... But this is called Dharma sharing. And so basically you can do it... I think you could actually do this with yourself. You can actually do this in the way that you talk with yourself. And really what it is, it's about people coming together, and we sit in a circle, and we're at a beautiful place, so we all sat on the floor and we sat cross-legged in a circle. But of course you don't have to do that. It could be online, it could be on Zoom, whatever. And it's really about, so we kind of come to a place of, let me do this properly, so we kind of go, get very calm and get down deep. And very often we're sitting in a place, and whatever we're going through, wherever our spiritual practice is, whatever our day-to-day is, to just allow your current challenge, to kind of come up from there, So it could be that you have a difficulty with things that you have seen other people doing. It could be things you've seen on the news. It could be with a worry you have about your own life. It could be about your family. But just to be calm and allow this just one thing to come up. Yeah. And that's also nice. So if we look at things in isolation, when we allow one thing, we can kind of deal with that one thing. And so what we do is, when we're sharing in this way, what we do is we are allowed to talk about this one thing. Don't milk it. Just tell the one thing. And the other people in the group, or the other person, or even yourself, if you're working alone, listens. I'm reminded of Hitch. Have you ever seen the film? And he's teaching boys how to go on a date, and it goes, listen and respond. Listen and respond. So when you're listening to somebody else's, or even your own problems, it's like looking in the mirror and you say this one thing. one challenge, one problem, and it doesn't have to be about the current situation. It doesn't have to be something more monumental. It could be, I'm worried that I've got very dry skin. I don't think anyone's going to say that, but it could be, it could be, it could be that you have, and it's okay for it to be anything. It's okay to, to cut yourself some slack and be honest about what's actually bothering you. Because, for example, somebody might have just paid for a course of treatments. And I know it's going to sound very silly, but somebody might be very worried about that or upset about maybe they were, or they had something to do with they were going to have something done to their hair. For a lot of people, their hair is very much, related to their identity. And so what am I going to do if I can't get my hair done? What if, And it's okay. In this space, the Dharma sharing space, we're not here to judge anyone. We're not here to tell somebody that you shouldn't feel that way or you can't feel that way or other people are suffering more. That's not what Dharma sharing is about. It's about allowing the feeling and actually listening to somebody and not trying to fix it. Not trying to tell somebody else how to think, not trying to judge them, or trying not to judge them, rather. But it's not to say we can't feedback, And it's very, it's very interesting when we look at Dharma sharing and we say, well, okay, well, these are the rules. They're not allowed to judge. You're not allowed to tell somebody not to feel that way. You're not allowed to tell them to try and cheer them up. You're not, this is the thing. It's about a way that we communicate and support each other without, really, judgment is the biggest word, or trying to give somebody your solution. So we can offer our solution, but very, very carefully. And it's not about our story. So if somebody's got a problem with their hair, and I know I'm using I'm using an example like this because I know that there are probably people out there who feel this way and they can't tell anybody because they know it's silly. And they know it's not that important, but at the same time it still bothers them. It's still something that's upsetting to them. So I'm using this as an example. So, if somebody says, oh, I had, I was going to do this thing with my hair and I can't do that now, and I don't know when I'm going to get to the hairdressers and my hair's, this or whatever. So somebody else might say, oh, well, I used to feel that way, but now I don't worry about it. That's not very helpful, and we're not therapists. So we're not necessarily going to sit there and say, why do you feel that way? Or, we can just listen, and we don't even have to offer a response. We could just sit and listen. And then we hold that space in the room. We hold that space for people. And just allow it, allow somebody to share. And then if nobody feels it's appropriate to say anything, that's fine. We move on to the next person. And that's okay. We do have a tendency in our society to want to fix people's problems. And it's one of those things like on Facebook, if somebody puts a problem, everyone's like, 100 answers. But there is something very special about being able to sit with somebody and allow. And I remember when I did this, and I've written about this, so it's not breaking any confidentiality, it's nothing that personal, but somebody was sitting there and they had just got to a point of realizing how much they'd hurt somebody else. And they were finding that excruciating. And that's also one of the things that comes up, in healing and in retreats and all this kind of thing, because sometimes when we get time alone, we actually stop and we look back and we realize some of the things that we've done. And it's, like if you think, again, I keep coming back to rehab, very difficult and important part of rehab is actually to take, to apologize to people for where we've hurt them. And so sometimes that's the hardest thing, is actually to stop and realize where we have treated other people unkindly, or just through lack of awareness we've hurt others. And even if we have no intention of hurting somebody, sometimes our behavior can be extremely hurtful. And so there was a lady in our group who was feeling that way, and she was really hard on herself. She was finding it, she was judging herself very, very harshly, because she was really feeling it. She was really feeling the guilt and the pain of what she had done. And remember when we finished the circle and we went on, and I was waiting to leave, and there was a taxi, and I looked around for this lady, because I thought, I do have something to say to her, and I didn't want to say it in the group, because it might have been a little bit more than I should say, and I wasn't sure whether to say it or not, and to say, I've been there, and I've made mistakes, and I've sometimes we don't understand what we've done to somebody until somebody does it to us. And I had a really good friend once who, I remember when we were hanging out, we were friends, and he was constantly messing somebody around, a friend of mine, and he was always doing it to her, and he had no idea what was really going on. He had no idea how much he was actually hurting her. And then somebody did it to him. And I always remember he came over to my house, and he was sitting there, and we sat there and we talked all night, and he just was like, he was in bits, because he was like, I had no idea how much it hurt to be treated this way. And it's really hard sometimes when we're on the other side of something, and we experience what we've put other people through. It's really hard. And we have to have compassion for ourselves at that time, because obviously we wouldn't have done things if we had known. So it's kind of a challenging moment. But at this time, I remember standing there, and I was sort of looking around for this lady, and I couldn't, I was like, And at that moment, one of the chaps from the circle came up to me, and he went, "Go talk to her. You should go and talk to her." And it was, it's like he knew, and he could feel it, that I had something. And then I turned around and I saw her sitting, and I went over, and I just said, I've been there, and I've hurt people, and I've done this and I've done that, and I've, and none of us would, we don't intentionally hurt people. I think most of the time what happens is we just don't, and some of it is when we don't realize how important we are to certain people. So we behave in a certain way because we don't realize how much it hurts them if we ignore them, or if we go off and date somebody else, or if we don't turn up when we say we're going to turn up. If we let people down, we don't think it's that important because we don't realize how much they care. So sometimes we think we're more important than we are, and sometimes we don't appreciate how important our presence, or the phone call, or a birthday card, or just saying I love you is. And so I think that's one thing that we can all, I think a lot of people are realizing how important it is that we stay in touch and that we talk to each other. But sometimes we don't realize how much our opinion means to people as well. So if we say something that's kind of a throwaway thing, some people can take that very, very harshly. So anyway, that's Dharma sharing. And you have it from the Buddhist monks and nuns that they do this too. And that's a very good practice. And you can also look it up online and see other ways of describing it, or drop me a line. And I'm going to be doing some meditation classes as well. So if you've got any questions and that kind of thing, come join me. and doing a live class. And, I'm really glad to be able to share this with people right now. And I'm so grateful that I've been able to have all these experiences and to be able to support others. And also to, really importantly, to support myself through this, because I said to somebody today, even with all the practice I've done and everything, today is a challenging day. And yesterday was a challenging day, really. But we have a lot of wisdom and strength that we can share with other people. But maybe, we also need to think about the best ways that we can share advice, and we can. And yeah, I need to finish this now. It's a topic I find very, very interesting, and it's so simple and it's so challenging as well. The thing of share your worries and your fears, but don't dwell on it. And and one thing that a mantra that I have lived by at times is, do not offer or accept unsolicited advice. So that means if you put it on Facebook, you're kind of soliciting advice, really, I think, But we don't have to accept advice from people if we haven't actually asked them. And sometimes we can just be talking about something through with somebody and they start giving us all this, fixing advice. And it's okay to say to somebody, look, I know you want to help, but could you just let me express my feelings right now, and not please, I can you just give me a space to just talk about it. And also you can say to somebody, can I offer you some advice? Would you like my opinion? We don't have to just jump in there. We can actually give it a space and say, would you like, can I give you a suggestion, or would you like some advice? Or, we don't have to, it might be nice to actually ask permission before we jump in there sometimes. So, and I think at the moment there's a lot, there's a lot of people struggling, and it can be quite tempting to just kind of go, oh, I know the answer, right, jump in, but that might not be what they need, and it might not be the right thing for them. So it can be nice to sometimes take a moment, and when you're on a spiritual retreat all the time, or rather, when you're on a spiritual retreat, sometimes people are going through things and they're having a good old cry and they're having a breakdown, this kind of thing, and probably you say to people, you say, oh, can I help or whatever, but you don't go up to somebody in a spiritual retreat and go, cheer up, might never happen, because you don't know what's going on for them. You don't know. So kindness, compassion, and that doesn't necessarily mean telling people how to feel or to cheer up, because we all have to process in our own time, and we have to do things in a way, if we can, that works for us. Okay, it's a big subject, isn't it? It's a big subject. Anyway, take care, and I hope this helps. Okay, bye.